you've done some great work, and in some ways I love you.
Okay.
In other ways, you're stupid and arrogant.
Whoa. Wait, pause.
All right, guys, so you know one of the favorite traditions around here at the Monday Guy Show is the content team likes to find interesting videos and catch our reactions to it. And so today, they've let us know that there's an interesting video they found from one of our neighbors just south of here, Mr. Dave Ramsey. And they said there was an interesting caller that called in, and they had sort of an exchange, and they wanted to hear what you and I thought about it. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
All right,
Let's give it a go.
Up next is going to be Chris in Los Angeles. Hi, Chris. Welcome to the Ramsey Show.
Hey, Dave, how are you doing?
Great, man. What's up?
There's a couple things. One, you've done some great work, and in some ways I love you.
Okay.
In other ways, you're stupid and arrogant.
Whoa. Wait, pause. Maybe bury the stupid a little later, because I mean, holy cow.
Maybe not lead with that.
Here's the thing that I don't know if it's phone, if it's the internet, but we've all kind of gotten a little separated from the golden rule of treating people like you want to be treated. I wish I'd have been paying attention to Ken Coleman's reaction so I could have seen what his face did when stupid.
His face is, yeah.
Can you back it up just a little bit so I can pay it? Because I mean, I want to see his reaction on the reaction show.
On that just a little bit.
In other ways, you're stupid and arrogant.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
Okay.
Iceman. They didn't say.
He's still thinking, what's about that?
How can I help you?
All right.
By the way, that's a great way to start any conversation right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my first question would be, are you smarter than Warren Buffett?
Okay.
How old are you?
Because I'm 35.
Okay, cool.
Dave is trying to figure out who the heck just called my show in my building.
Yep.
Ken is like, oh boy.
And he knows somebody's poking the lion right now. I'm thinking is what's going on.
What's the point of your call? How can I help you?
The point of my call is you
calm.
push people into actively managed funds when over time, if you pushed people into an index fund, they would have about 50% more money when they retire.
Okay. Not sure where you went to school for your math class,
No.
but you failed.
Okay, now what was the premise of that? What did the caller say?
So what the caller said is, if you have an actively managed investor versus a passively managed investor, at the end of their investing life, at the end of their career, the passive investor will have substantially more than the active investor, is what he's laying out.
Wow. Dave is our neighbor to the south.
Yep.
And yet, the content team also knows we love us some index investing. So if we're going to make our point to Dave Ramsey on why index investing is better than active, why did we have to wrap it in a guy who, in the first two sentences,
called him
stupid
and arrogant?
It just, I mean, I'm like, oh no.
That's the side of the equation.
This is where this is going to get us sideways with our neighbor to the south.
Actually, compounding costs
I understand.
add up dramatically.
I got socks older than you. I've been teaching this a while, okay? So
I think Dave should get some new socks if he's got 35-year-old socks.
Here's the thing. You're basically doing what Bogle said, and Bogle invented a wonderful thing with the index fund, and the S&P 500 funds are wonderful.
Yeah.
The index funds are wonderful. They are not a cure-all, and there's no possible scenario, unless you're an absolute idiot in picking your actively managed funds, that you would have 50% more in an index fund.
So I'm trying not to do absolute statements so I don't even get embarrassed. When you're 20, we think a 10% rate of return is reasonable, but we let it come down each year because as you adjust your risk, as you add diversification to the portfolio, by the time you're 30, it's 9% rate of return. By the time you're 40, we can't think 8's reasonable. By the time you're 50, you're probably thinking 7, you know, so forth. It walks down in incremental steps. $1 for a 20-year-old that turns into 88 or has the potential to turn into 88 at 65. If you actually just lowered the rate of return by 1% down to 9%, it does change the 88 to a 56. Now, I'm not going to do the public math to figure out percentage differences, but it is a big number.
But the rate of return over the long term can have an impact for sure.
The actual facts are more than 50% of the funds underperform the indexes.
Okay,
that's
true.
That is
It's actually way more than 50%.
Fact. The fact is 2% above, if you have a 7% return versus a 9% return, which you have the compounding cost bringing your return down by 2% over 50 years.
So he even went further than what we do 45
Do the math
years.
on that, Google it.
That would be true
Okay,
too.
so he's agreeing
but
that
none of
one.
those numbers you're using are accurate in terms of what the S&P has produced or what actively managed funds have produced.
Well, but he's not talking about return. He's talking about the differential in return. Differential over the long term of active versus passive. That's
Right.
neither here nor
The
there.
actively managed funds that I personally have picked have outperformed the indexes by more than 2% as a portfolio, because it's fairly easy to study mutual funds. And
Now,
pick them
this
that
is something,
outperform.
there's a reason when you look at the Spivo research and other research out there, index funds, if you look at them on a 15, 20-year basis, they outperform 85 to 86% of the active managers.
Yep.
Or you could say it said differently, 86% of active managers
Underperform
underperform
their index.
the index fund. So the sheer fact that the number's so big means it's the exact opposite of easy. Perception-wise, you would think, hey, what's so hard with doing that? And so I think that's my issue.
And so I think what Dave is saying is, if only 14% of active funds outperform their indexes over the long term, he's
Dave's got
basically
it.
saying, I got it. I, Dave Ramsey, can pick not just 1 year, but over the long term, the 14% of active funds that are going to outperform. That seems like an aggressive statement.
That 14, 15% that do outperform, they typically, when you go to year 2, year 3, the same funds are
changes.
not there. So there is some consistency problems with what Dave just shared.
But if you're not going to study them and you're not going to have a good advisor in your corner, then using the index funds is a great idea.
Hold on. He said if you're going to have an advisor, if you're not going to have an advisor in your corner, you should own index funds. I disagree. I think that like a really good advisor should also utilize index funds. In the real world, it's not an either or. I think that really good advisors figure out how to incorporate that into an investment plan. So I disagree a little bit there.
Here's what we actually found in the real world versus someone's hypothetical vacuum discussion of theory, okay? As we studied the largest study of millionaires, 90% of them became wealthy without inheritance. The inheritance did not cause their wealth. And almost
true
all,
statement.
and
Our
almost
survey
all of
says the
them
same thing.
did it with their 401k with actively managed funds. Now, some of the funds actually underperformed the S&P, and some of them overperformed the S&P.
Dave is right. The majority do reach their $1 million status, seven-figure status in their retirement plans. It's also Ramsey Solutions, Dave and those guys have put together that it's age 49. That's actually where I get that stat that I share.
It's from that
age
survey.
49 is from that same type of research. But here's where I think we vary a little bit. What is the largest 401k provider for like Fortune 500 companies and the S&P 500? Where do they have their retirement plans? It's Fidelity Investments.
Yeah.
Fidelity Investments is one of the lowest cost providers of index funds. So I'm a little disconnected in the fact that industry-wide, the largest 401k provider is actually one of the greatest index providers. I think there could be some correlation
They can
there.
actually be using indexes inside of the
That's a
401k.
little off from what was just shared.
And some of them used an S&P because a good 500 fund was in their
Okay.
in their portfolio as
Good
well.
disclaimer words,
Now,
Dave.
let's go back to Warren Buffett for just a second. Are you aware that Warren Buffett does not have all of his investments in index funds? Other than the fact that he has stated that the average guy, because he's a Bogleite, the average guy should buy index funds instead of actively managed funds. Other than that, he doesn't actually do what he says he's going to do with that. He actually has an actively managed portfolio called Berkshire Hathaway. Are you aware of that?
Yes, I am.
I'm
And he's
aware of that.
doing
Have you
it
heard of
with the money he's leaving to
Just
his
have to keep
wife
saying
when
you
he
got it.
dies.
Well, that's fine. I mean, where the money's going is not relevant to the mathematical discussion.
I have people bring Warren Buffett up because they go, look, Warren has outperformed
And
the
look how
index,
well
and look
he's
how
done.
well he does. So I always try to make the differentiation that Warren Buffett, even though he's buying Apple, he's buying Coca-Cola, and all kind of other individual stocks with his holdings at Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett has primarily made the lion's share of his assets and money from Berkshire Hathaway buying entire companies.
whole entities.
And it's still an investor, But it's just a different type of investor than what the typical retail investor, the typical investor that's working with a financial advisor. Realize we're in a completely different category. That's not apples to apples, that's apples and oranges on how he built his wealth.
The mathematical discussion, Chris, is simply this. Warren Buffett made comments frequently about the average guy should buy index funds. And I really don't have a problem with that. You can get rich with index funds. Not 50% richer. That's complete BS. But you know,
that is true.
But you can get rich with index funds. I don't have any problem with that at all. If that makes me arrogant, fine. But I think we're confused as to how arrogant.
You see what he just did? He just hit the magic button right there.
I've got a book suggestion for Chris. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's a classic.
Yeah,
you should read it.
Drop in. I think the caller, smart guy. I'm not going to take anything away because I think he's smart. I would echo King Coleman, though. There is a way to attract and talk with honey versus just coming in there and popping Warren, because like I said, it does break the golden rule. I was kind of, truthfully, I give Dave a little credit. I felt like he pulled back. He pulled back on the punches there. But I do kind of feel like hopefully we paid respect to both sides. So you felt like you had a nice tour guide, mediator, somebody to kind of help you figure out how to navigate this discussion that was just happening.
I'm only going to add one thing in there, and it's the reason why we love index funds and we generally opt for more index funds than actively managed funds, is because of something Dave's team says all the time. We've heard Dave say forever that like 80% of personal finance comes down to behavior.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things we love about index funds is it removes you having to do the behavior that Dave was talking about, of go try to pick which fund is going to be the best one this year, and which one's going to be the next one next year, and how do I buy and how do I sell.
Great.
Instead of being out there trying to beat the market, it's okay to just be the market, because when it comes to investing, time in the market is way, way, way more valuable than trying to time or timing the market.
I've been doing what I've been doing for 30 years, Chris, and it's made me a multi-millionaire. And I invest in actively managed growth stock mutual funds that outperform the indexes across the 4 types we teach. I actually invest in what I tell people to do. I don't tell people to do something while I'm investing in something else.
Shade at Warren?
Oh, I think he did.
Different than my friend Warren.
But I don't want to.
Oh, he just said different than my friend Warren. He actually just threw shade at Warren.
I don't want to close this negative, because we all know Dave has gotten so many people out of debt. This is the great thing about focusing on wealth building, the good habits, the savings, is that there are so many different paths to create wealth. If you know, Dave has done it through active management, but then we know index funds from our own experience of helping people navigate how to create wealth. And this is the great thing about money in general. If you start young enough, start building the habits, you too, whether you're doing active, whether you're doing index, you'll do it. I mean, you'll make wealth, because that's why I talk about that concept of 88 times over, is that every dollar you can invest when you're 20 years of age has the potential to turn into $88. My guidance to everyone is do the basics like Dave talks about. Get out of debt. Don't be, a servant of the credit card industry and all those things, but do try to maximize your army of dollars growing for you. Save early, save often, make it a consistent automatic habit.
If you heard, we're talking about this idea of 88 times over and how powerful $1 can be. If you haven't gone to check out our website, go check out moneyguide.com/resources. We have a deliverable that is completely free that's called How Powerful Are Your Dollars? We call it the Wealth Multiplier. If you want to know what every dollar that you save right now can turn into by the time you get to retirement, go to moneyguide.com/resources and check that out. And you are going to be blown away that, just like Brian said, so long as you're showing up and staying consistent, and even Dave said it, you can be rich. No matter which strategy you employ, if you show up and stay disciplined, you can do it.
Even with index funds, even Dave agrees with that.